Part C.2, container configuration. So we keep improving our current solution. There is another important step. We need to improve the solution. So let us look at the problem first. Still a new problem, even after we have done several rounds of improvements. Still, there is a big problem. Okay, yeah. So when we switch from PDF format to the HTML format, so look at what properties do we have. Yeah. So we have to modify the code of the container. Inside the container, you need to change the code. You need to change the implementation class from PDF report generator to HTML report generator. Yeah. You need to do that code change. And then compile Java files, redeploy, all the things you have to go through. Yeah. How can we change the resource configuration without changing any Java source code? So the ideal case is we do not want to change the Java code. Okay? We can change some non-Java information, but we do not want to change the Java code. So that's something we want to do in the new solution. Yeah, so look at this. So this is another big change without changing any Java source code. But it could be some non-Java data or information you can change, but not Java code. Yeah. So that's the key point of the new solution. Yeah. All right. The way to do it, the new way, configuration, through configuration. So we change the implementation classes through configuration, not through Java code change. That's the idea. What's the difference between configuration and the code change, right? So you may ask, what's the difference? You need to change something anyway, right? What's the difference by changing in the configuration way instead of Java code way, right? There is several differences. Yeah. So we will see, in our next half of the page, we discuss the difference. Yeah. All right. So now we move the configuration part out of the container, because when we do the Java code change, it's inside container, in container. All right, yeah. Now we move that part out of the container. So we change, but out of the container. But the container will get the changed information and do the remaining work. Yeah. All right. The configuration file is a text file. Text file, that can be changed by any person who knows how to change. That person is not necessarily a Java programmer, because it's not a Java code. It's not a Java code. Just some simple information. Yeah, so let's look at more configuration. Configuring a container. Main idea. Yeah. What do you do in configuration for a container. Here, the main idea. First, here, what do? We just separate configuration from programming logic. Separate configuration from programming logic. So what's that? What do you mean separate configuration from programming logic? First, we know programming logic, right? So when you implement some type of logic, business logic in your programs, you use programming logic, but something does not belong to programming logic. Something that's basically the configuration. What do you mean configuration? All right, here I talk about one special view before. If you can still remember wiring, right? I used this word wiring before. Wiring. Wire, right? Yeah. So, you know, wire. But opposite. Yeah. W-I, yeah, wiring. Okay? Yeah. This term before. Yeah. Yeah. The meaning is we have many different components. So inside a container, there are many components. Now we need to find a way to connect them. Wiring, so that's the wiring step. Wiring components. Connect them in some special way. That wiring job, that's the configuration. That's the configuration. You can see that's different from programming logic. Programming logic. Okay? You connect different resource object. Okay? So we treat as the wiring, the configuration part. Yeah. So that part we like to separate from programming logic. Yeah. So you can see that's important. That separation is important. Why it is important? Because when we change the configuration, we do not touch the programming Java code. We do not touch it. We just change, there is some special configuration file. We modify that configuration, human readable text file, to make the change. So then no Java compilation, we can make the change. So try to compare that difference. Yeah. All right, so next. All the configuration information is contained in a text file, in a special text file. What kind of text file? Yeah. Next slide, we will compare two different types of configuration text files. Yeah. All right. It can be modified by even a non-Java programmer because it's not Java code. It's just a human readable text file. So it can be modified by a non-Java programmer. Why this step is important, right? Why this step is important? Actually, it is pretty useful feature. Yeah. Why? Because if you modify a Java code, only Java programmers can do. Non-Java programmers are not allowed to change the Java code, right? Yeah. But in a company, there are many people in the company, they are not Java programmers. They are not Java, they are business people. They are business people. They cannot change Java code directly. Okay? Yeah. But the configuration file, it's not a Java code. Okay? So the business people who know the details in the information related to the configuration, they can change. They can change from PDF to HTML, right? Definitely, they understand the difference between PDF format and HTML format, right? They can make the change. Later in our example, you will see to make that change so simple. So simple. Anyone can make that change. Okay? Yeah. All right. Then our programming logic can process the configuration in the text file. Eventually, some special program needs to process the configuration information to make the change take effect. Yeah. So, and make the change happen without any Java source code modification. Yes. And in our another video, I will show you how to do that part. Yeah. How to do that part. Yeah. You will see that. Yeah. All right. The configuration information must be in a format for easy parsing. Yeah. So that's the technical step. Because in our Java program, we will do the parsing. When we parse the information, we want to have some user-friendly format. Yeah. So that's okay. Yeah. There are several convenient ways we can use. Yeah. All right. So the next slide, let me give you first 2 types of configuration files. The first type called java.properties file. Java has this kind of special properties file. Java format, Java require that specific format to be used to define Java properties. Yeah. What's that? Yeah. Some of you may have that experience, but here I just give you the key points. Yeah. First, each line corresponds to a property. So in a property, it's a text file, contains multiple lines. Each line corresponds to a property or comment, sometimes common line. So if we do not look at the common lines, then non-common line, each line corresponds to one property. A property means, what do you mean property? A Java property here, it means a key value pair in that format. Key value in that format. But how do you write that key value format? The format is, specific format is this. The format of a property in this way, my key equals my value. My key, just the key name, any key name. You can replace it by any key name. Okay? Then equal sign. Use equal sign as the separator. Then my value. How about that? Yeah. So that's the typical property format. My key equals my value. One line, one property. Yeah. All right. Java has its support to process this type of inside Java. There is a special class called a properties class. Properties class, Java class. So this class has many methods inside to process this type of files. Yeah. In our next video, I will show a simple example to do the processing. So you will get an idea, the details, how to do it. Yeah. All right, so that's the first type of configuration files. Second type, XML configuration. Another commonly used way to do configuration, XML files. All right. First, this kind of configuration use the tree structure to organize configuration information. We know XML files, the tags, many tags used in a nested way to form a tree structure. There is a root. There is a root element. Under the root element, so many other child nodes, nested away. So the XML configuration, mainly for relatively complex configuration, because the XML can represent very complicated structures. And you can see, if you compare with the properties file, the structure is so simple. Key equals value, that format. You do not see the nested structure, right? In the XML file, you can represent nested structure. A node can contain many child nodes. Child nodes can also contain many more other child nodes. It could be very complicated. All right. Very complicated in parsing. So this type of file, when you do parsing, very complicated. Usually the Java programmers like to avoid. Although in many technologies we use XML configuration files, but we do not need to write our own Java code to do it. That particular technology, they provide internal support to do the processing. We don't worry, we just follow their specifications. Then it will work. So that's why even if it is very complicated, we don't worry, we just use it. We do not write any code to do the parsing, part. We never do it. But in my simple example I give you in this module, I want to get a hands-on experience on how to do the processing. Just some basic idea, some impression. All right, next I show you a simple example of a typical Java properties file. Actually, it is the property file we use to configure our current example, the container of our current example. All right, so look at this. The first part, the sharp sign, that means this line is comment. We comment it out. So the processor won't process these lines. But when we do the switch, we can uncomment some lines and comment other lines, right? Comment out other lines. So that's very convenient. All right. So for example, if we want to change from HTML report generator to PDF generator, we can just comment out HTML line and remove the sharp sign of the PDF line. That's the change we need to make. Can you imagine non-Java programmers can do that easily, right? Yeah. If you tell them the meaning, they can do it easily. So that's the reason to change the configuration information, much easier than changing Java code. Yeah. All right, so next, then we define component report service. So that's the, full qualified path of this Java class. Yeah. Then injection, dependency injection. So this line, we provide information for dependency injection. Yeah. But how do you do it? Yeah. How do you do the dependency injection using this line? Our next video, C.3, I will show you how to do it. To give you an idea internally how these things are processed internally, right? Because we won't see it. Yeah. In the real world technologies, we won't see those things processed anywhere. We won't see them. Okay? Yeah. But you just imagine they will happen somewhere. Yeah. All right, so let me finish C.2 video first.